today is going to be so interesting. It's about millennials and how millennials lead. So as you see, we have 3 amazing millennials with me. And part of my training, one of the topics that a lot of organizations keep asking for me to talk about is the generations and how to work and communicate across generations. And somehow, the millennials, they have, for some weird reason, not a great brand image in terms of the word. But when I work with them, when I know my friends that are millennials, I'm like, they're amazing. And as a result, I feel that it's a totally missed competitive advantage to a lot of companies. They're not really tapping into the talent that the millennials have and continuing to motivate them and get the best out of them. So as a result, I decided to bring 3 amazing panelists that we have today that are millennials, that are in leadership roles, and so they can tell us how they lead differently. So we have Adrian Owen. Hello. And Kristen Raby. And Jeremy Bate. So, so thank you for being here and agreeing to talk to us today. So I'm going to start with you. So how about you tell us your story, your leadership journey?
So I am Adrian Owen. I am the Assistant Vice President for Advancement Services at the LSU Foundation. And at the end of the day, what I do is I lead a really ambitious and talented team of individuals to drive philanthropy for academics at LSU. So my leadership journey, I feel like that is such an awkward question. I love you, but I feel like that is an So when I think back to what kind of set me on this trajectory, I started out as a working artist. And I was teaching art classes. I was a studio art student. I was also, changing majors 100 times a day. And I was struggling to really find something that felt like a niche. So I got into gaming. I started playing World of Warcraft, and I rose up through the ranks and became a world-ranked World of Warcraft player in a really high-end guild. And thank you. Yeah, thank you. So out of 13 million players, I was in the top 50, sometimes higher ranked than that. And so some of the skills that it taught me were, how to really do my own research, become, self-sufficient. We didn't have all the online guides at the time that we do now. I learned how to parse data and really do complex data analysis. And at the time, we had to build our own user interfaces. So fast forward a little bit, I was able to get a job through my connections as an artist, working at a foundation. Saw a ton of process improvement that I could make, all through leveraging data, through creating some dashboards and UIs. Came to LSU, was able to do the same thing. And after about 2 years here, I was able to take the lead on a revitalization of our systems. So that really positioned me as a leader within the team. I was able to really set the strategy for how we were going to leverage data, for how we were going to look at it. Continued on that trajectory, and here I am today leading a team of 40 people when we're fully staffed. We're hiring, so please go check out our website. I really love what I get to do because at the end of the day, we're leveraging data to inform strategy, and we're doing it all for the great cause of supporting LSU. So,
that's great. Good morning. I'm Kristen Raby. I am the Director of Victim Services for the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney's Office. I'm married with 2 little girls. I have a 9-month-old at home right now. So I've been doing this work for 10.5 years. I have my master's in social work. I started off basically as a victim advocate. When the DA first came into office, his mission and main goal was to make sure that victims understood their rights. A lot of that it gets overshadowed. And so we created this program basically from scratch. It was like 2 of us. I have one of the veterans in the crowd. She started it and then brought me on board. And I started in domestic violence, and as their victim advocate, working with those victims through the court system and making sure they understood their rights and safety and planning and things like that. So to now being the director and developing a hospital-based violence program at Our Lady of the Lake, and working in the community and just making sure that the community understands what we're all about. So it's a lot, you know. A lot of people ask, how do you do the work that you do? Because every day you're dealing with trauma and victims and grief and things like that. But I love what I do. I have a passion for this and helping people and being their voice for them. So that's my story.
My name's Jeremy Bate. I'm one of the co-founders of 368. We're a digital marketing agency here in town. And leadership journey, I guess I never thought of myself as a leader per se, but when you sent that question, I had to think about it. So I went back and thought about even growing up. I kind of grew up in a neighborhood in a small town where it was like a group of kids, and we were always building something like a tree house, or we did neighborhood Olympics and all this type of stuff. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, I guess like I was always one of the people who wanted to get everyone together kind of playing in the same yard. And I think that's kind of still what I do. And so fast forward to 368, and I tried working, kind of just working in a regular job, and it wasn't for me. Because I'm a builder. I like to make things. I like to make tree houses. I like to make Olympic games that don't exist. And so we started making this company, and I never identified I'm a leader, entrepreneur, but what I figured out is I like to inspire people, and I like to find people who I think are better than me and say, hey, would you help me with this? And you could probably do it better, and I'll let you do that thing, and then I'll help you along the way. And that's kind of how I ended up where I am today. And I've found that that's probably what rewards me the most, is seeing other people get to do things that are impactful and get to reach some level of fulfillment. So I guess that's my leadership journey up to this point, and I'm definitely still figuring it out.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the first two questions, and then we're going to open it to everybody to ask any questions you want. So the first question is going to be about I know like the title, like as a millennial in a leadership role, and all of you manage people. How do you see your style different as you are motivating your team, especially if they are from various generations?
So you sent some links about millennials in preparation for this, and I realized some of the things that I had attributed to being a gamer are actually characteristics of just being a millennial in general. So I think that we're inherently very meritocratic. I think that was obnoxious early on because I was somebody that believed good ideas could come from anywhere, be them somebody below you or somebody above you. I didn't think that hierarchy was an intrinsic value. I think that's a quality that millennials have. Real-time feedback. So one of the great things that I learned about gaming was like you would wipe on a boss and you instantly knew how you did. You could see your numbers, you could see your metrics. Millennials want that real-time feedback. They want to constantly be improving. It's all about self-development, self-improvement. So I think that's a way that I really try to provide lots of opportunities for that for my team, resources for personal and professional development. And then I think millennials are self-starters because at the end of the day, we've seen some stuff. I graduated in 2008. You all know what happened at that time. It was just like you had to be scrappy to find a job, and even if you had one, you were like grateful to have it. So I think the reason so many of us have side hustles, the reason so many of us are comfortable I know somebody that just quit and like doesn't have another job, and I think that's like an inherently millennial quality. Because it's like, what's the worst that can happen? We're going to figure it out. We're scrappy. We can Google it if we don't know. And so I think appreciating those qualities, respecting that being a self-starter and knowing that you can Google something is better than, or is just as valuable as traditional paper credentials. So those are some ways that I think I've fostered that within my team.
Okay, my the way I do things is a little different, I guess, because of the work that we do. And my team consists of generations from probably each one of those groups that you see on the table. So, for us, with the work that we do, and I concentrate more on self-care with my team and making sure that they're taking care of themselves. I concentrate on career growth. There are a lot of times they come to me and they say, I want to do something more. There's something else that I'm interested in, or I want to see what I can help you grow the program, how, which way. So making sure my team is okay is just having an open ear and being there for them. And after they go through a long trial, making sure, hey, you need to take time for yourself. It's time for you to take a day off, because this is draining. This work is draining. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're going to burn out. So for me, working with victims of violent crime and making sure my management style is kind of making sure my team is just okay. I don't micromanage. I'm just there for them, and providing the resources for them that they need, because a lot of times we work with very little financial support. We are grant funded. So it's like, hey, what can we do to get this free? Or like, what resources are available for our victims? And so I'm out there trying to hustle that for them and making sure they're provided that. So I think for me, it's just making sure that the team has everything that they need and everything they need to take care of themselves.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm barely a millennial. And, and so I now find myself where I'm definitely the old guy at the office, and half of our team are sitting right here, and I can't look at them because they're gonna laugh at me. But yeah, so if you just think about, and Adrian, you said a lot about this, but if you just think about what it means to be a millennial, you grew up at a time when we went from landline phones, which I still have my friends' phone numbers memorized from when I was a kid, and we moved to social media. And so what does that mean? That means like information and connectivity is now a default, but the millennials are unique in that they watched it happen. So they saw the dot-com boom, and they saw the potential of technology and connectivity and opportunity and all these things. So I think, like, to sum it up, the way I think about managing millennials is that you're managing entrepreneurs. That's really what you're doing. Everyone is self-empowered. They're self-starters. They can just Google it, honestly, and like that's probably a greater skill than a master's degree at this point. And so when you're dealing with that type of person, you really have to understand how to empower them. And the way I think about it is, historically, you talk about success at work. It's like getting that promotion, getting that raise. I want that new title. But I don't think millennials care so much about that. They care more about fulfillment, right? So purpose and getting into a role where they feel like they're making a difference. They're growing themselves. Personal development is a big part of what millennials aspire to. They want to become the best version of themselves because ultimately they control their own destiny, and they know that. And so, yeah, I think maybe I'm still figuring that out, but I think we're doing a decent job of not tasking people with, hey, you're this and you need to do that, but saying, hey, here's an opportunity that we see. Can you go figure it out, solve for it? And when we do that, that's when we typically find success. And we've done that. I have so many examples, but we implemented a program called Sales and Strat at our company, which is what we did is we took our strategist and we said, hey, why don't you start figuring out things that we could sell to our clients because you see the opportunity. And boom, like we doubled in size. It was crazy. And it was a blind spot, but all we had to do was give them an opportunity. We didn't have to teach them anything. So yeah, I guess that sums up like what it means to manage a millennial to me is just get out of their way, honestly, and care about them.
Yes. Don't criticize them. Okay, so the next question is, as you are leading your team, you're going to have people that are younger than you, but also individuals that are so much more senior than you. So how do you adapt to ensure that you're continuing to motivate them and communicate with them?
So for me, it's about really understanding what they value and what's important to them. So, sometimes that's family. Work-life balance might be the most important thing. It might be opportunity for growth. It might be professional development. So really understanding what it is that motivates those team members, I think, is the most effective way to manage them with compassion. I think also recognizing that there are those differences and trying to meet your people where they are. So I'm a big fan of Strengths Finder. I really love understanding people's strengths and seeing how those fit into the workplace and really managing to those strengths. And I think that works regardless of what generation people are from.
I would have to totally agree. I was going to probably say the same thing. But honestly, because my team does each generation on the table, I would have to say the same. I look for their strengths. I look for what motivates them. One of our main things that we do, we go out in the community and engage. So each person on my team, I have some team members that really enjoy that, and I have some team members that are kind of like, let me just stay in the office. So, it's like, okay, I look to those individuals that really enjoy that, because I don't like to force people to do something that they're not going to enjoy. So let me find something else that they enjoy that I can delegate to them. So it's just like, what motivates that person may not motivate the other person. My generation, I'm trying to think of the different age groups, but for my older victim advocates, when we're doing something that requires a change in our technology and our database system, I spend more time with them because, computers have definitely upgraded and the things that we do in the computers. And so it takes a little bit more time for them to get, accustomed to that program, and which is totally fine, and then my younger generation, they're like, oh, we got this. You don't have to tell me what to do. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So, it's just like where you meet that person where they are and helping them develop those strengths and needs. So
Most of our company is younger, but most of our clients are older. So it's a very different conversation. Going the way I see myself looking up the years and down the years from where I stand, and obviously, like talking to younger people, it's always a more aspirational conversation about, here are the opportunities ahead, and here's the vision for what's possible. Let's go out and get it. And then talking up to people who are further along in their career and come from a different generation, it's a very direct conversation. So very bottom line driven. That's what it boils down to for me. And we have engineering clients and companies who come from very utilitarian industries, and then couple that with an older age group, and it becomes like, okay, we're going to get you 10% ROI on this project, and if you say that to an aspirational millennial, they kind of glaze over a lot of the time, because it's not, it's truly not. I think if you asked our team, did you join 368 for the paycheck, most of them would say no. Honestly, we want people to make good money and get paid what they're worth, but that is not why people work with us. I believe that, and I think if you ask them, they would say that. So yeah, it's direct going up and aspirational going down. That's probably what it boils down to for me.
I want to add one thing. So 368, they have some job postings, but in addition to advertising that, the message I want to say, I want to share is, like, I'm looking at your team's post on social media, and I saw one yesterday, telling how much they love the team, and it's a family, and they're encouraging other people to apply. And that is so powerful to see that your team, not just representing your brand, they're loving it, and they would want to share it with the world. Yeah. Okay, so now, thank you. And everything you were saying is truly great leadership. So when we think of leadership and the leadership skills, this is what we teach people to do, and to you it's coming so naturally. Yeah. Yeah, because you Googled it, yeah, or played it in a game, yeah.
Like you said, there's some negative stereotypes sometimes that are a little too much and probably not as dramatic as they are made, but there are some challenges being a millennial that we face. So can you talk about, we know some of the good things about millennials, but what are some of the challenges that you think we have in the workplace?
for me, some of the challenges that we see is they like to post everything. And unfortunately, in the work world that I work in, you kind of can't do that. So, but at the same time, we don't limit people from being on social media. That's their, private business. But we just have to educate them on what they can post and what they should not post about. So I think that's one of our biggest challenges. And also, I think another big challenge is, no, I'm going to stick with that one. No, there we go. There you go.
This is terrifying for me. They're all staring at me.
Tell them what their challenge is.
Okay. Yeah, they already know. So I think for us, some of the challenges that come with a younger millennial group are keeping them motivated, keeping everyone motivated and empowered is a lot of work. It's like most of my job. And it really is. And that's, I think, maybe different historically. People would come into their job and they would just grind and then they would go home. And they didn't really need empowerment as much, maybe. So yeah, it's a full-time job, truly, and it's hard. So that's definitely one. And then building an organization that is our team at least, they're always bumping against the ceiling of our company. They're outgrowing us. They go faster than us, and I think that's why millennials sometimes job hop is they know what's out there. They can see it, and so keeping people on the team and making sure that you can grow as fast as them is really hard too for us.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to completely agree with you on both of those things. I think that the penchant for oversharing is a big one. I think that maintaining motivation, I have made the joke, like, this isn't Refinery 29. I feel like sometimes people on the team have the expectation that, like, everything is glamorous and, like, they should be, loving everything they do and super inspired by every single thing. And it's like, no, sometimes you just need to complete this report because I need you to complete the report. And that, I think that is inherently a struggle because they can go somewhere else and they can do something else. And so how do you motivate high-performing people to also do the stuff that isn't super sexy or fun? Right. I think that is a fair criticism of a lot of millennials. The other thing I will say, my team yesterday, we were kind of whiteboarding some things that we could do to improve team culture, which is like such a millennial thing to do. But one of the things that came out of it was see the truth in criticism. And I think one of the things that is difficult about millennials and about, is it Gen Z that's right below us? Gen Z, is they are so open to pushing and prodding and criticizing and seeing a better opportunity and calling out that better opportunity. And sometimes there's a valid reason why you can't do it, and sometimes you just didn't think of it. And it's hard because we all have ego, we all have pride. And so hearing the truth in the criticism and being open to new ideas and trying new things, I think it's a challenge, but it's an incredible opportunity. So,
thank you. Do you feel like you set different growth expectations for people in different generations, or should you, considering that they have different, motivators or have different mindsets about how they should work?
I don't think I set different expectations. I think I evaluate people based on their own merit and strengths, and I think that's the easiest way for me to feel like I'm being a fair manager.
You want that?
No, well, right now within our company, it's the age diversity is not that broad, so I don't have to deal with people who are in that other chapter of life, further along. But at my prior job, I was the youngest person in the company, and what I saw there was, I specifically remember this guy. I had just started. I was making nothing, and he said, I'm 40 years old. I can't make $40,000 a year anymore. And I was like, you're rich, I was like, you make how much? And so I think there's a story in that as you go through your career, your needs and expectations change too. So I'm trying to be mindful of that as our company ages and people are having babies and things like that. Ebony, who just had a beautiful baby boy, by the way. So I think this is to be continued for us for sure.
So I have a question. I'm looking for some advice. I've recently, I think I'm being groomed for a leadership role in like a little organization, but most of the members are much older than I am, and I am really self-conscious about leading a group of people who are much older than me, and about how do I, as a millennial, instill confidence in them that I am the right person to lead them when they all have so much more experience than I do?
So, congratulations. You're amazing. I interact with our board a lot, and I kind of sense the same thing. While we have some women on the board, it's mostly just like old men. And so presenting information in a way that instills confidence is something that I'm constantly self-conscious of. I think also as a woman. So my advice would be know what you're talking about and talk about it confidently. And I think that like hard work over time speaks for itself, and have the facts and present the facts.
I agree. I have nothing else for that one.
Definitely confidence is like the key ingredient. I'll give you like one trick that I use with a lot of our older clients. Talk about technology they don't understand. And you knock them back on their heels, and they're like, you can see their wheels spinning, and then you're like, you agree, right? And they're like, and you can completely disarm a room that way, and then you have to lead because you're the only one who knows what's going on.
That's really good advice. That's really, really good advice.
It's an IT company. Oh, you wanna? Anyone here knows what TikTok is? Anyone does not know what TikTok is? I learned it just from Jeremy. It's a new social media for little kids. I had no idea. Okay, next.
Good morning. So I'm a Generation Xer, and I come from a very formal, hardcore work ethic environment. That was how I was groomed. And business is becoming much more casual. I'm psyched to wear jeans. I cannot thank you guys enough for encouraging that. But balance, I have a very serious work environment. And so balancing the casual with the professionalism, I find I'm very self-conscious. And I'm wondering I think it's going to keep getting more casual. So how do we keep the formality of the seriousness of our work while still being relaxed and like able to be more human about our business world? I'm just curious where you guys see it going.
That's a very interesting question. Well, working at a district attorney's office, we are business casual. Right now I'm wearing jeans, but I'm not supposed to be. But we have certain days that we are allowed to be casual and some days that we aren't. So it's just, we're trying to get there to be more casual side when we're not in court. So that's a good question. I mean, it's like our work that we do is different. So we kind of always have to stay more business, So.
I'm a firm believer in professional attire. I own way too much tweed, but I think that but I think it's know your audience and know your space. I mean, when you're having a professional meeting, dress up, because to me that signals a seriousness of the work. If you're in a creative profession like this front table, I feel like the pink hair is great, So I think it's just knowing your audience. But for me, at the end of the day, you still have to be professional about the work. So I'm all about work-life balance. My team regularly works remotely. I'm very flexible with the time that they have. But you get your stuff done, and you get it done with excellence. And so I think that's how you maintain that work ethic. And I do think, going back to the negative perceptions about millennials, the idea that we're like flaky or don't work as hard, I think is nonsense, because to Jeremy's point, we're the first generation to grow up that has our boss in our pocket at all times, and we never get to turn it off. So that's why that work-life balance and self-care is so much more important to us, because we never get to shut it off. And so just recognizing, like, produce quality work product, but give your people work-life balance, I think is the way that you embrace that kind of casual vibe that you're feeling more than jeans to me. Jeans are great, but
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me. We're very casual, but I've actually thought a lot about this because we meet with so many different industries, and it's like, how do we, where do we land with that? I think I see. So, how many of y'all have like a hobby that you love? Hopefully, most of you. Okay, so for me, one of my hobbies is riding bikes, and if I start to get burned out on that hobby, I'll buy like a new part for my bike or something like that, and then you're excited about it again. You're like, oh yeah, I've got this new thing, I've got to go use it. So that's kind of how I see attire, is like you need to dress in a way that will inspire you and make you feel motivated to do your job to the best. So some days, if you're coming in and you're grinding it out, you might wear jeans and a t-shirt at our office because you need to grind. But if you need to inspire a client, you need to wear something that makes you feel like you can inspire a client. So it's definitely, for me, and that's probably a very brandy answer because we're a brand company, but it's like brand yourself for what you're doing that day. And that's how I think about dressing. And even today I had slacks on, and then I was like, no, it's millennial, like I have to wear jeans. So I literally I changed. Yeah. 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 So it's intentional.
We're all having fun and we're all laughing at the cliches and the jokes about every generation, but we've done that throughout history. Generation looking back and those kids. When does it serve a purpose to have these conversations? When does it not? We've crossed into now, of course, okay boomer land. Good, bad, indifferent. Is this valuable to continue to have these conversations, or does it take us to a place we don't need to go?
I think it's very important to have these conversations, especially working with, for me, like I said, I work in a DA's office. So the attorneys in our office range from baby boomers to Generation Y to millennials. It's important because we want to make sure that the people that came before us understand that they can have confidence in these new attorneys that are just starting out, that they can take on this case. Just because they're just right out of college doesn't mean that they don't have the skills that this other person has because they've been doing it longer. I think that's the perception a lot in our office, is that, oh, they just graduated, they can't take on that homicide case. What are you talking about? Why are you giving that to them? They don't know this. But you gotta motivate them. You gotta trust that you hired the right person and they have those skills to do that. So for us, we're always having that conversation in our office because we have so many different age groups in our office. I have a lot of investigators that I work with who are all baby boomers. And when they look at me and they look at some of our victim advocates, they're just like, oh, you children. And I'm just like, no, but we're not children. We are young adults, professionals, and I've been doing this for 10 and a half years. I know what I'm doing. I know the laws regarding victim rights, and so I'm educating them most of the time. So I think the conversation needs to continue. I think it's only going to lead us in the right direction. Yeah, we joke about it a lot, but you got to have some humor in it sometimes. If you can't joke and laugh at yourself, then sorry. So I think it's a good thing. Y'all want to take it?
I think so. I ask myself that question a lot too, because it feels like you're putting people in a box in some way, or you're drawing lines, and I don't have like a clean answer for that because I'm on both sides of the fence with that. But I think where I've landed is there are some facts, like some constants with, over time there are conditions that create different archetypes, where growing up with the internet is going to create a different work culture for everybody than something prior. So where I land is being mindful of the conditions that different groups have grown up in, and understanding how to accommodate maybe their tendencies, or their what they consider innate, we may not consider innate. So from that level, I think there's value there, but I do agree that there's so much individuality beyond that, and there's so much, like Dima said at the beginning, you can't draw a line. And if you start doing that, if you start okay boomering, that's where it becomes a problem, you know? So yeah, I think it's something we need to be careful of, and it's a very valid question for sure.
I think it's all context, and I think context is important to making sound decisions. And so I do think these conversations are valuable because they provide context. And are they the be-all, end-all of existence? Absolutely not. But like Jeremy said, I think they do provide a framework, and I think that's informative and insightful. And I've already learned things today. I mean, I've heard things that have, sparked in my mind. And so if for nothing else, I think these conversations are valuable because they get people talking.
Before I ask my question, I just did want to say one thing about the leadership position versus all the leading people with a lot more experience than you. And I think leadership is also so much a state of mind. And it's not necessarily about the experience you have. There's some people with a ton of experience who don't want to be in a leadership position. That's just not where they feel comfortable. So I don't know if that helps at all with kind of moving into that role, but for me it is a lot about how you feel in that state of mind too. But my question is about self-care, which I think is even in itself more of a millennial term. And when we talk about mental health and wellness, a lot of times the generations before us, that's a tougher conversation to have. And so how do you navigate that in your workplace, and what are you doing specifically to encourage self-care within your employees?
So I'm first going to give a shout out to Dr. Yvette Marsh in the back. She's amazing. Yeah, give her a round of applause, please. She's amazing. So she has been, this is one of the harder areas to Google, right? Because sometimes there can literally be legal implications. If somebody comes to you and says, I'm dealing with this, so how do you respond in a way that is ethical and helpful and in the best interest of that person, while also still reminding yourself that you're responsible for the best interest of the company that you're serving. So I think having wisdom on your side is helpful in that context. I will say for me, it's just about recognizing that technology allows for flexibility. And so giving people that flexibility and trying to lead by example. I'm not good about taking my vacation days, but I do take off Friday a lot. I do take off early a lot because I don't want my team to feel like they can't take that time for themselves. So I think that it's important to lead by example, make sure your team knows that it's okay. I think all of my team knows they can do what they need to. I think this week I've had somebody that has a sick kid, somebody that had a sick dog, and it's all the same to me. Do what you need to do to take care of your family. So.
I like what you said about lead by example, because I don't do that, but I'm going to work on that. It is. But as you heard me talk about earlier, self-care is very important to me and in the work that we do. And so not only am I always educating our victim advocates and kind of making sure, checking in on them, I do the same thing for the attorneys. I've had the pleasure of my boss, Mr. Moore, that allows us to help educate the attorneys about taking care of themselves as well because of the work that they do. Handling these type of cases can burn you out. You are opening yourself up to secondary trauma. So for us, we have a professional development every year and different topics. People come in and talk, and it's just a matter of getting that out there, making sure that they understand because, like y'all said before, we're always on call, especially for our work. We really are. Our attorneys, every week there's one attorney that's on duty 24/7. So when something happens, they have to go out to the scene. So the same thing as for our victim advocates. So once they're off of duty, I'm always like, okay, what can you, hey, go take the day off, But I think, like she said, I need to do better leading by example because I am bad about taking vacation days, and I'm more of trying to take care of everybody else, and so I need to take care of myself. But so yeah, if that answers, I hope that answered your question about self-care. Yes, that's what I wanted to touch on. I'm so glad you said that. Yes, they don't understand it. And even for my boss, he was kind of like, when I would say, "Hey, mental health days," he's like, "What? What is that?" It's like, I'm like, we need those days. We need to start doing that. I think it was just a more of they're like, you get the work done. You go to work. Come, what's wrong with you? Why do you need a day? So it was a challenge trying to get them to understand it. And even now it still is, but I think they're starting to get it, because they're starting to feel that trauma, that secondary trauma. So, every day is different when it comes to self-care. Even if it means they take a long lunch, to me, that's good, So when you're trying to educate those individuals to understand why it's important, you get more accomplished from it. It's like, oh, yay, they get it now, So I definitely deal with that challenge a lot.
Yeah, I think this is definitely an area that we're trying to grow in, and we have a lot of work to do. It's a yin yang for us because we're an aggressive growth company. We want to conquer the world, and then that's the wind in your sails, and then the anchor behind is, hey, we're all dying here. So how do you balance those two things? And we've implemented things like the EAP, some half-day Fridays, lots of fun events and stuff to keep people feeling positive. But some of those things are more Band-Aids, So I think in the long run, there has to be boundaries. And that's something we're still working on because the boss in your pocket thing, that's new, and nobody knows what that means for mental health. And so when you get a text or a Slack or whatever at 10 p.m. and now you can't sleep until it's done, like how do you account for that? And it's up to us as leadership and as bosses to not do that and to model the right behavior. So I've been thinking hard about that. And I think this, just saying it out loud is challenging me right now. So it's something we need to work on for sure.
So I think the question, I appreciate that you're calling out leading by example, but I'm also wondering, how do you actually empower people within your organizations to manage conflict from within? So I'm thinking about the natural tensions between the various generations within an organization and the tension that you feel between competing values. You might have a 45-year-old who's more risk adverse and doesn't feel confident to speak up versus a 20-year-old who's like, I can put it all out there because I can pick up and leave. And I think the implications for culture that has is huge, much to your point earlier about, we say it's millennial to talk about culture, but I think it's older generations called it sustainability. Yeah. And so how do you as managers navigate those tensions and empower employees to start learning the skills needed to take those on themselves?
I try to be very transparent about the fact that this is a journey for me as a leader as well, and I'm constantly learning. And I try to take my team with me on that journey. So when I learn something new, I'll shout out to Yvette again. She sent me some videos that were about navigating conflict in the workplace. And I just sent them to my team, and I said, I'm going to watch these 10 videos this week. I would encourage you all to watch them too, and let's talk about them next time we're together. And the feedback that I got was from across generations, and it was all different, but everybody had takeaways. And so just like listening to that feedback, absorbing it, and then, trying to find some ways to make it actionable. So yesterday, my team, we talked about those videos with a group of the middle managers, and, we said, okay, everybody has one takeaway. Let's write it down on the whiteboard. Let's put it in our team's chat and hold each other accountable to it this week. And so that's something that worked for people across the age spectrum. And I think that vulnerability breaks down those kind of generational barriers.
That's a good question. I would say, and once again, our age diversity isn't as wide, so we don't necessarily have that broad of an issue, but we have a lot of issues with people wanting different things and having different motives. And we definitely have people who want to have job security and people who I could see packing up and leaving tomorrow. So with that, I definitely think I'll steal a line from Brandon Landry. He did an event with us last night, and he said, hiring for the vision, not the job, is really important. So make sure people are bought into a common vision, and then these discrepancies of preference kind of fade away a little bit because everyone is marching in the same direction for the same thing. And if we can agree that we're going to this place, then how we get there is not as consequential. Tactically, what we implement at our company is radical candor as a principle, and we really do. It's hard. Radical candor is really hard to actually do, and I'm conflict averse, so it's really hard for me. But we really try to encourage everyone to have one-on-one conflict resolutions constructively. We never want a meeting to happen. Someone walks out, they go to their manager or their best friend, and they say, "Can you believe what they said?" And then now you've got this like back channel dialogue happening. If that ever happens in our company, we say, "Well, let's go get them and let's talk right now." So we try to have these one-to-one conflict resolution moments. Yeah, so hopefully that helps.
Okay, well, for us, we are a work in progress because I work with a whole bunch of people that don't like to deal with conflict from the top down. So I think for me and my team, direct team, I'm always, like he said, I like for them to go one-on-one, you know? And so if there's something that they come to me about, I'm like, okay, how you handle it first. And I'm encouraging them to, and I'm sending them information on how to handle those conflicts. It definitely varies from my team, from the age groups, because some people handle conflict differently than the others. And so bringing them together is very difficult, and it's something I'm always working on. And constantly still working on. And as a leader, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I help demonstrate how to handle certain conflicts and, you know, that they can learn from and educating them on. So that's, honestly, you just got me thinking more. So, yeah, thank you, because that's something I feel like everybody can continue to work on. Conflict, no one likes to deal with conflict. I don't know why. Like, I don't like dealing with conflict. So it's like, you know, it's a work in progress. So, yeah.
There's two truths about generational communication that we haven't talked about. One is you always fear what you don't understand. So when you're teaching, when you're trying to lead a group older than you, yes, they have experience, but they don't have experience in this hyper fast speed. That's what you do. I mean, that's what this millennial group does, is live in this kind of speed, and it's too fast for our older generation. The other thing is the generation, which I guess we're talking about millennials, what we desired, we created in the next. So, you know, historically, as a former, you know, socialist teacher from World War II, we created, you know, a group that needed stability, needed that pension, that 20-year, don't want to pass the job because they were so afraid to go back through that. You know, that group created what I guess, you know, hopefully don't offend, but like the hippie movement and that kind of thing. They wanted the freedom, and then that created another type of, you know, just a more stability part, which led to us that wanted more freedom to explore, and you guys got that. So it's just a misunderstanding, and to ask the question, I would never stop this conversation. And I had to ask questions about why you don't want to have that conversation. That's been a huge, when you talk about personal development, on what conversations we don't want to have are the ones we need to have the most. And it's like, and I'm Miss Owen here talking about World of Warcraft. I played that for 9 years, but I would have never stood in front of a room and told them that's where I got my leadership. And it was just blowing my mind. I'm like, I never thought, as someone with a doctorate now in educational leadership, to stand up and go, well, I got my leadership from World of Warcraft. I've been like, whoa, talk about fearless, you know, and that's the difference.
It's easy when you're like a small female.
We're
right?
always so like afterwards I want to go, oh, what server, you know, so no leadership questions, but anyway, I just want to say that you know, I talk so much about from generational or from a racial issue, we fear what we don't understand, and when we stop those conversations, we allow the fear to control us. You see what I'm saying? So.
I just want to say a slightly critical thing, and I appreciate what you were saying.
I look for the truth in the criticism.
Thank you. when you made the statement about boomers can't navigate this fast-paced world, I saw her face change, and I think that's what shuts down the conversation. So I think we have to be open-minded to recognize, one, people can span. There may be outliers, but also people are adaptive and their minds are expansive. And like my mom, like there are people in this room who follow her on Instagram. She is like posting her stories all over the place, you know. So I think that, you know, you have to see the individual, but the generational conversation is helpful for context.
Hi, thank you all. I have a question. I'm a manager of Gen Zers, and it's been a delight. I haven't had an experience of managing someone that's older than me, but I'm interested in kind of dealing with clients that might be older, or even managing people that are older. What are some of the attributes that you would seek out in people to promote them into positions where they would be speaking with or doing business with people that are particularly in Gen X or boomers or older than them? When you're going out to say you're going to hire someone who's going to interact with our board a lot. Adrian's my boss. So this is gonna be someone who's point person with the board. They're all generally older than us. What attributes or characteristics of that person would you seek out? These are bridge builders. Who are the bridge builders to Gen X and and boomers, and what do they do?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that it's as formulaic as a type. I was at the same thing Jeremy was at last night, where Brandon Landry, right? Brandon Landry had said, hire for the vision, not the need, which I'm posting that in our teams later today, guys. It was a good takeaway. I think that for me, at the end of the day, it's finding people who will represent the vision for the team and communicate it effectively with confidence. Those are the people that I want to put in front of the board. It's not so much about a generational thing as a competency thing. And I think that competency can come from any age group. It's just a skill that can be developed. If I'm talking about communication skills that are specific to one generation versus another, I think that's a little bit in our head. I think at the end of the day, it's just listening to people and understanding what they're interested in and delivering that for them. So we know that members of our board are very data-driven, or they might be moved by impact, different ones. So understanding how to read that person, find out what's important to them through listening, and then delivering on that.
For us, our office definitely hires for the vision, not necessarily. I can give you an example. So come January, our new chief operating officer is a millennial. He is probably a little bit younger than me. So he's going to be leading our office of all these attorneys who are, some are older than him and some are younger. And, every conversation I have with him, I can see he's, learning every day. Every conversation he has with anybody, he's learning something new. But he has the vision that our boss wants to carry out. And so that's why he was chosen. So it's more about, does this person have the same vision that you have, and will they be able to project that on and carry that mission for us? So, and he's one of them. And I'm very proud that we have a millennial that's going to be kind of my boss now on top of another boss. And so it's exciting.
So for us, bridge builders, we spend a whole lot of time trying to explain software to a lot of different people. And just to roll out one product, we'll use like 10 apps. And we have to get our clients to use these apps with us. So the way I'm answering this is kind of in that context of how do we build the bridge to these older generations who they prefer phone calls over emails, and so how do we get them on apps? And I think what works for us and the people that are good at it are the people who can state the purpose of things succinctly, like in a story. So if we're trying to debut like an application with a user interface that's very complicated, and we start walking them through the features, you're going to get like glass eyes, but if you can tell a story of, hey, our target user is Martha. She's a 42-year-old mom, and she really needs to get her kids to daycare. So we built this system that's going to get this done for her in a fast way, and here's why. Those are the people that can bridge the gap because they can humanize any of those discrepancies in the tactical things. So I don't know if that helps, but it's all about storytelling, I think, and being able to communicate a purpose beyond whatever the thing is that you're disconnected over.
Okay, so until you think of another question, I'll bring up a topic that Jeremy and we talked about last week, and it is millennials. They have also part of the stereotypes is they don't stay in a job very long, and this is causing a lot of frustration to a lot of companies. So one of the things we talked about is it truly that they just don't want to stay in a job very long, or is it because the environment, it is not healthy to match what they need, and as a result, they're going to leave? So based on our conversation, we reached to the conclusion that if we create an environment where we have our millennial employees, they feel that they can grow. Their manager is focused on their development. It's a healthy work environment. They feel that they're compensated fairly. They're getting the flexibility. They're not gonna leave, especially if the company is doing something that is bringing meaning to the community. They're helping, they're sponsoring, they're volunteering. So what we came up with is if you create the healthy environment of what they need, they're not gonna leave. If they leave, it's just a symptom that there's just something wrong in the organization. So yeah.
Almost 10 years, and I've been at the foundation almost 7. So I think that tells you the story right there. It's not about job hopping, it's about having a positive culture.
You can comment to that. That's what I was going
Oh,
to
okay,
ask.
sorry.
You guys want to comment on that?
I agree. I think that's right. I think that honestly, millennials more than, this is making a generalization, but the millennials that I know value stability a lot more than people give them credit for. And it's about finding a place that they can put down their roots and have some stability. And if they get any sense that this is not a place that values them and that they're going to get thrown under the bus, or that this is going to be a situation where they're going to be at risk or undervalued or taken advantage of, that's where the flight happens. When they feel valued and when they feel like they are afforded self-care and they are afforded the opportunity to grow, and you might hit that ceiling, but there's a conversation that's like, we know we're at the ceiling, but we're pushing. Mm-hmm. I think that's how you retain them. You're exactly right.
I would agree. I think, like she said, I've been there for 10 years, and some of the people that I have working with me, under me, have now reached, some of them have reached their 5-year mark. Some of them, it's the environment plays a huge factor. I think that plays more of a factor than anything else for us at my place of employment. We try to strive on a family environment. My boss is he's more into now that family comes first, even though they're always on call, but if someone has a sick child at home, he's like, go take care of your child, go take care of your parent, go take care of this. That's more important. He understands. And I think it took time for him to get there. I think that took some years of him being in that position, but we are there now. And I think more of the people that you do see leaving now are those are just retiring, so.
So my dad is like 64 and he job hopped all over the place. So I think, there were people that have always job hopped. Dima, you actually changed my mind on this a little bit in our conversation, because I kind of had this bias that I didn't see, where I just accepted, oh yeah, like millennials have short attention spans, so they're gonna have short attention spans in their career and they're gonna jump around. And I think early on with us, we were so, we started up from nothing, and so early on people would come and go because we couldn't pay them. And I didn't make that connection of, oh yeah, they weren't making money, that's why they left. But now that we've stabilized the company and we're able to pay people market rate, it clicked in that conversation. And I thought about Phil, who's been with us from the beginning, and like, I don't think he's going anywhere because he's bought into the vision. He's gone. No, but people and Kara who jokes like I'm going to run this company one day. It's like I don't think she's going anywhere. And so I was like, you know what? You're right. It's about creating conditions and once again having the vision and getting the right people on board. And with that vision, we're not done. Like we're just getting started. So why are you going to leave?
We were just talking about this the other day, though, about specifically the turnaround in our company is very low from a full-time perspective. The only people that leave are typically interns who we don't have the opportunity to present full-time jobs for. And so I feel like, and I'm proud to work for 368 because we embody that. We sort of push that stereotype aside of like, millennials are always job hopping. I've been with 368 for 3 years, Phil 8, we have somebody who's not here 7. We haven't lost anybody in the last year, I don't think, and it was by personal choice to move elsewhere and do that. So the stereotype speaking to, is it a good, should we embrace those? Yes, for context, but you have to look at the individuals and that's something that I see in all these organizations as well, is that it's about each individual and each group too, and making sure that you're looking at that more importantly.
And looking a little deeper to understand, like if the job hopping is happening, why? And I want to go back to Jeremy's point about the vision. I think that's why, the foundation grew at rapid scale pretty recently. When I first started, the advancement services team was like 10 or 12 people. Now it's at 40. The people that didn't stick along the way, there was a lot of turnover. But they were, honestly, I believe, people that weren't bought into the vision of, we're going to work really hard, we're going to push really hard, and we're going to achieve really great things by doing it. Some people left for better opportunities. Some people have left and are trying to come back. But at the end of the day, I think the people that stayed are the people that understood where we were going and wanted to go there with us.
Thank you. This is so great. So help me to thank our panelists.